Hey, welcome back to the Stash. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the beginning of the brand new story arc for ASM, The 8 Deaths of Spider-Man. As you probably know, last release saw the end of Zeb Wells' painful time on the book, so with that we now enter into the Joe Kelly run. Now, whether or not this will last very long is still to be seen, because I do believe that he might just be a temporary replacement as the main writer for the volume, but either way, I just really hope we get at least a decent entry within the lore. So join us today as we go for the Amazing Spider-Man issue 61, The 8 Deaths of Spider-Man. But before we get into that, I wanted to take a quick second to let you all know that here at The Stash, it's our goal to reach 4,100 subscribers before the end of the month, and with your help, I know we can do it. So if you're new around here and you like Spidey or just comic content in general, feel free to stick around and maybe hit that subscribe button. But anyway, with all that being said, it's time for... So our story begins with Spider-Man on the chase against a new, seemingly unimpressive foe named Burnout. During this mid-air battle, all of Peter's belongings are on the brink of being lost forever. Luckily for Pete though, this man he saved named Kevin is able to save all his belongings throughout the fight. We got his trusty camera, which is even more important now considering for some reason Randy Robinson is his photographer manager starting this issue. We also got a special record vinyl gift for his current girlfriend Shay, and lastly a check for fees that Aunt May asked for him to deposit. Spidey tries to finish the fight quickly now that Kevin has all his belongings, but Burnout last second turns into Firebirds to evade the attack. Suddenly, as Spider-Man is perched on the rooftop, the new Sorcerer Supreme Dr. Doom appears out of nowhere, calling for Spider-Man's services. The mere sight of Doom terrifies Spider-Man, but mostly Kevin as he drops Peter's belongings off the building in fear. Spidey lets Kevin down and then confronts Doom. The Sorcerer explains that he's chosen Spider-Man for the most important task of his life, a task which he must prevail in. Spider-Man somehow keeps composed and stands his ground, telling Doom there's no way he's agreeing. Doom declares that the Covenant shall be broken, and within a blink of the eye, leaves the scene. Later on, Peter must face the consequences of his inability to seemingly do anything right within every 61 issues of this run. Aunt May, Randy, and Shay are all rightfully disappointed in him, but granted, it's almost the norm at this point. Anyway, so in classic Peter style, he just heads to the bathroom for a quick escape, avoiding all the problems that he just caused. After a quick change, Spider-Man walks back and forth going over his recent troubles, with the meeting with Doom taking the forefront of his every thought. And so naturally, as one does when Marvel forces a certain character in the book that no one asked for, Peter goes to the 10-year-old Spider-Boy for existential crisis advice. Spider-Boy says ice cream, but then there's a massive explosion downtown. Peter quickly heads to the scene, leaving his child therapist behind. A menacing giant named Sintros is wreaking havoc among the streets of New York, exclaiming that the contest has begun. He demands for Earth's champion, when suddenly a web shoots onto his face, followed by a swift, thunderous kick. Yet Spider-Man ended up probably doing more damage to himself, considering how powerful one like Sintros is. No matter what Spidey does, no matter what method he tries, it feels like he's making no progress whatsoever against this major threat, for with one simple counter, he sends the webhead flying each time. Doom then intervenes and tells Spider-Man that this was the task he was granted to complete. He continues by saying that any who perish will be Peter's fault for not accepting his request. This tugs right at his sense of responsibility, and Spidey immediately accepts the proposal. As this transformation begins, Dr. Doom goes all over the history from the Darkhold Chronicles Age of Strange, for which Spider-Man must now know to fully understand the severity of the situation. Doom explains that the young Sorcerer Supreme explored the lengths and depths of his magnificence, and while the potential inspired awe, he quickly discovered the limits of his human power. In order to guard the Earth and its environs from the countless threats of the immaterial cosmos, he would require aid. Bargains would be struck. While studying the eldritch histories of the Darkhold, Strange discovered the unassailable Chrisman casket of Sidorak. It would be ample protection for the Earth, for this dimension. However, the Chrisman god Sidorak is generally immovable in body and mind, as is well known. Strange, nothing if not clever, entered into a parley with the god in order to sway him toward a pact. Eventually, a covenant was forged, but Strange quickly learned that the cleverness and intelligence are not the same. In exchange for erecting the casket and protecting Earthrealm, Strange had to commit to besting the 8 scions of Sidorak. the restless, spoiled, terrible godlings eager to prove themselves worthy of their father's throne. Strange thought it was a fair bargain, because he believed he found a loophole in their cosmic contract. There is one rivalry that precedes the All-Birth, Sidorak and Raggador. Strange armed himself with the sacred reeds of Raggador, which all but assured that should he fall at the hands of the Chrisman Scions, he would be reborn and thusly never lose. The Covenant demands that at the top of the Chrisman calendar, Earth put forward a champion to battle the Scions for Sidorak's amusement. The contests were taxing to say the least. Strange Ever the Martyr chose to face the Scions himself. His inefficiencies also knew no bounds, yet he prevailed. Every time the Covenant was invoked, Strange answered and paid the mighty toll to maintain the casket every single time. But now that Doom reigns supreme, and since he considers his time far more valuable, the need has arisen for a different champion. And so enter in the amazing Spider-Man. Armed with the arcane armor to give him access to the mystic arts and to protect his physical form, and of course, 8 of the life-restoring reeds of Raggador, our hero must face the Scions, beat the Scions, and protect the Earth, for this is the word of doom. Spider-Man instantly attacks Sintros, yet he's still facing some difficulty until he notices his weak spot. And so thanks to this new suit granting him the necessary knowledge to prevail in battle, he is now aware of the fact that the luminescence of limitless Langolin can not only fill a Blackheart hole, but also destroy it. So in a heroic act of the ages, Spider-Man sacrifices himself to kill the beast. He begins to hear a voice go over his last few moments. It's the newly appointed Death, better known as Phil Coulson. He's saddened to see a fallen hero, especially one such as Spider-Man. But then, he begins to slowly fade back to the land of living thanks to one of the reeds. The rebirth is more than painful. It's excruciating. It's something no person should have to ever experience, for it would simply break them. Spidey sits there and tries to recover from all that he just endured. Suddenly, a ghostly figure begins to form. It's Doctor Strange. He bears good and bad news. The good being that Spider-Man's alive and in perfect health. The bad, he must face and conquer the rest of the Scions of Sidorak, meaning he'll likely die and rebirth another 7 times. For if he doesn't, the Earth will fall. Okay, that was weird, and honestly for me at least, a huge mixed bag. There's some stuff here that I actually liked, and then a lot which I didn't. Like, firstly, it's definitely an improvement from the horror show that was Zebwell's run, but there were just some moments within the issue that just really didn't work for me. Like, before everything went completely extreme, they once again had to hammer on home the fact that Peter is just one massive loser within this volume. Okay, sure, he's down on his luck majority of the time, but he's not an incompetent moron. For him to lose some of the feast money, break the record, and his photo drive all in the same day, it just feels way too over the top. You know, who knew that relatable to Nick Lowe meant not being able to do anything right? Give this guy a win, for God's sake. I can't handle reading Peter to be the biggest loser imaginable for another run. An aspect that used to be so capturing about Peter as a character was the way that he always managed to somehow get back up, to somehow find a way to persevere, and to create a small flicker of light even in the most darkest situations. That, to me at least, it just feels all gone. It's literally just darkness. There's no resolutions, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's just constant L's for Peter. This to me, and I'm sure to a lot of other Spidey fans, is the very opposite of what we want, but of course, according to Nick Lowe, we're wrong and he's right. Speaking of Nick Lowe, did anyone see that tweet he posted? The one about apologizing to Paul fans for him not being in the issue? Seriously, how are we stuck with such a prick in charge of the books? The best part about that entire post was just everyone in the replies giving him shit, which he rightfully deserved. Anyway, this comic series has gone from indirectly torturing Spider-Man to deliberately causing him immense pain and actually killing him. What a time to be an ASM reader. I feel like the story and premise would work way better had it not been released right after the worst Spidey run ever. We've seen him suffer for ages now, and to get him brutally dying right after that it feels really draining with all considered. It's like a need for them now. They have to torture Peter. You could tell they were just itching to kill him at this point, and this was the only way they could get away with it. It's pretty weird to think that technically Spider-Man actually died in this issue. We properly witnessed 616 Spidey get killed in battle, and we'll see it again and again and again, and I really don't know how I feel about that. Overall, the story felt okay, like minus him getting killed, I was somewhat enjoying the more outlandish style of Kelly's writing mixing with the more outlandish plot. It's like a good breather after all the shit we've had to have. A story that will most likely just be a break of some sorts from the usual ASM garbage, which I can honestly get on board about, and already within the very first issue, Kelly clears wells in terms of writing. Now I know that's not a very difficult thing to accomplish, but one aspect of the books I was severely missing was Peter's inner thoughts being presented throughout the comic. For whatever reason, maybe it was just too much effort for him, Wells would rarely, if ever, include inner monologue within the comics, yet in Joe's case, he has it in full force here and it's one of my favourite things about the issue. Although I will say, some of his dialogue just didn't feel like Peter to me. Seeing him reference stuff like Timu or make any sort of modern joke sorta goes against a core element of his personality. Remember, growing up, Peter's only two real friends was his poor and old Aunt May and Uncle Ben. He was like an adult in a kid's body. A massive part of who Peter is him being severely outdated with his jokes, references, and just general pop culture knowledge. Hell, even in his adult life, the man never watched TV nor had time for it, considering he's always on the go as Spider-Man, and MJ for a while was his only real outlet for that sort of stuff. And I know it's a small nitpick, but it's just that we're losing even the little things about Peter which makes him Peter. Don't even get me started on his modern design either, it's horrendous. Also, I do appreciate though the idea that Kelly introduces relating to Peter's personal life, like making Randy his manager of sorts. Whether I like that concept is an entirely different thing, but once again there's this missing sense of continuity that these comics seem to have within the modern age. This was never explored nor hinted at prior to this issue, which fully establishes Randy and Pete working together. It really threw me off a bit, although I can at least just like the fact that Joe Kelly makes more of an effort to include his personal life. The artwork in this was also great. I've gone from an Ed McGuinness hater to an Ed McGuinness defender. His Spidey design really just shined throughout each page. In fact, his art as a whole within the entire book was a massive highlight for me. So The Amazing Spider-Man issue 61. Is it good, bad, or decent at best? To be honest, I found it to be none of those things. In my own opinion, this comic felt more deserving of a solid average rating, you know? There were moments like Peter's personal life being at a massive low and him literally dying in a super gory way, which threw me off completely, but the middle part of the book was pretty, dare I say, bearable? I'm guessing it's because it's simply not Zeb writing the book that's put me in this good mood to think somewhat positively about the comic, but I really feel like this story, if done right, is just what ASM needs, because the usual Amazing Spider-Man slop has polluted this series beyond belief, to the point where a story that's going way out of what's considered the ASM boundaries might do us the readers a bit of good. But at the end of the day, that's just my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours down below in the comment section. However, that's it for the video. Thank you guys for watching, and yeah, join us next time to watch Spider-Man get killed for a second issue in a row. How fun! Spider-Man, Spider-Man.